his home Grand Prix July 3rd. His teammate, Ayrton Senna, is challenging with brilliant drives in every outing to pull even in points, with the Austrian Gerhard Berger a distant third. Despite his brilliant victory drive in France, Prost has not lived up to expectations. We asked him, with the point streak tied after 10 races, how he looks at his chances for a third world title.
Difficult championship because that's not a normal way of fighting for a championship. Normally you can say, okay, this track will be good for me and I'm going to push, I'm going to try like this. But now it's finished, it's over. I mean, you have to push every race, you know, because you need to win. At third place is no use for it.
Prost's always fast teammate, Senna of Brazil, has sparkled in recent events, winning 5 times in his last 6 starts, including a significant victory in the German Grand Prix. We asked him if he now has the momentum to go on to his first World Driving Championship.
I don't know. The team works very well. The car is very good, of course, with the Honda engine, working quite well, and we are having good performance, and we just try our best.
And so the stage is set for the Fleet Marlboro McLaren teammates to fight it out for the World Driving Championship. The rivalry becomes more ferocious in each race, as evidenced by Prost's bold but unsuccessful challenge in Hungary. The question here is, which driver will prevail? In eastern Belgium is remembered by many Americans as the site of the pivotal Battle of the Bulge in December 1944, the turning point that favored the Allies in World War II. Today, this 70-mile square of woodland is a convenient retreat for many Europeans. Paris, Cologne, Brussels, Amsterdam, and Luxembourg, all being less than 100 miles distant. Hunting for small game and cross-country skiing are seasonal activities here, and taking the waters at Spa and gambling in its casino are year-round pleasures. But once a year, the racing fans of the world turn their attention to the Ardennes, for it is the home of the Belgian Grand Prix. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Economaki at the beautiful Spa-Francorchamps circuit, longest of the world's Grand Prix tracks at 4.312 miles. It's a track that's loved by everyone, driver and fan alike. And today's round, 11th of 16 counting for the World Championship, could be a decisive one for Brazilian Ayrton Senna on the threshold of his first world title. One who won't be here, however, is British superstar Nigel Mansell, whose case of chickenpox just won't go away. Sitting in for him is Martin Brundle, who's been driving Jaguar sports cars this year and having a great season. We asked Martin if he'd drive anything to get back in Formula One.
The temptation is there, and I've had 2 offers already this weekend to do just that, but I think I've enjoyed myself so much this year with the Jaguar team, and I've come to the conclusion you're either with a top team or you might as well stay at home and go and do something else. I think the motivation that gets us to this level in the first place won't allow us to then sit back and be an also-run.
Good luck, Martin. Senna racked up his 9th pole position of the year, and the start today should be exciting because across the front row from him will be his teammate Alain Prost. Now, the standing starts in Grand Prix racing are always exciting, but here at Spa-Francorchamps, they're even more so. And for the reason why, here's my ESPN broadcast colleague, John Bizignano.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. We're actually right down at the start-finish line here in Belgium. And the reason they've always had a little bit of extra excitement here in Spa-Francorchamps on the start is the fact that they've placed the grid on a hill. Now, if you can imagine, the F1 drivers have to concentrate about engaging the clutch, actually holding the brake, and keeping the revs up all at once. It's very difficult for them to do when they're worried about rolling backward into a competitor behind them. Another problem is the fact that the people towards the back of this grid, they're actually around a corner. They won't even be able to see the start light. Very difficult here, and it's traditionally there have been a few blown clutches and a few accidents right here on the grid. Now, if they do happen to negotiate the start correctly, the next problem is La Source, a first or second gear corner that the front row of this grid will arrive at some 100 miles an hour, but the drivers at the back, they'll be there at 160. Traditionally, once again, a problem. A lot of bumping going on into the first corner. But besides these 2 problem spots, there is a thunder spot here in Spa, and David Hobbs is out there to describe it to us.
Well, having safely negotiated La Source, the drivers then go past the old pit complex, and this is a downhill straight, obviously flat out. By the time they get to where I'm standing, they're doing about 160 miles an hour in 6th gear. And then they're faced with, I reckon, is one of the most daunting corners in Formula One racing. The car bottoms out just where I am, and they start to go uphill, steeply uphill, and pretty sharply right, all at about 160 miles an hour. And it takes a brave man to go through here flat out, and most of these drivers in the dry are. The road narrows from about 50 to 30 foot wide on the exit as they burst up onto the main straight. Racing drivers are known for their complaining about Detroit. It's not very safe. Monaco is not very safe. But for some reason or other, you mention the corner Eau Rouge to them, and their eyes take on a slightly glazed look, and they say, ah, Eau Rouge, well, that is a real man's corner. So we'll see them going through here just later on. Sit right where you are. We'll be back after this short commercial break.
ESPN Speed World. Formula One coverage of the Grand Prix of Belgium is sponsored by BF Goodrich TAs and the new all-weather Comp TA. By Quicker Stake Motor Oil. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will. And by Budweiser, proud sponsor of the 1988 U.S. Olympic team. This Bud's for you.
2 weeks ago today, one of the great automen of the world passed on. Enzo Ferrari of Italy, whose influence on car design, construction, and merchandising is well known, as are the impressive records set by his racing machines. But what few know is that Ferrari was a moving force behind the growth of international motorsport to its present world-class level. This auto factory in Maranello, Italy, is without a leader today. Its founder, builder, and standard bearer, Enzo Ferrari, died 2 weeks ago today at age 90. In the 1920s, Ferrari raced, later turning to race team management and then to car building. His Italian racing red Formula One cars accounted for 8 World Driving Championships at the hands of 7 drivers since the modern Grand Prix era began in 1950. Today, his production cars are sought after by the performance-minded in every country of the world. And so, with the passing of Henry Ford II, and now Enzo Ferrari, only one of the world's preeminent automen remains, Dr. Ferry Porsche of Germany.
Some other very sad news this month of August was the fact that John Timanis, the technical administrator for the Sports Car Club of America, finally succumbed to a very long illness. John took up that position in 1969, and since that time, great advances were made in technology and safety. Those advances will help the sport of motor racing be more competitive and safer for generations to come. John, your presence will be very much missed in paddocks all over North America, but your memory and your contribution will live on for years. The Grand Prix of Belgium after this. Belgium. The latest news right down here on the grid just moments before the start of this race is everyone is in quite good shape. We have a little bit of problem with the local hero, Terry Boutsen. He has an electrical problem. They say they have cured it, but he only did 2 laps, and that electrical problem could reappear once the car gets a little bit warmer. Williams, perfectly okay, but they feel they're a little slow. Lotus, they are going for a second place here. They do not think they can win over the McLarens, but they think they can battle everyone else in the field. Ferrari, a little bit more confident. They're going for a win. They say that the cars never felt better than they did in these few laps of late warm-up here. Arrows, they had a little bit of throttle response trouble with Derek Warwick's car. Eddie Cheever, the only American in this Grand Prix, is A-OK. McLaren's, of course, very competitive. Prost is in the car, very confident, but a last-minute problem with Senna. They are changing the pop-off valve on that car, and they will not be able to test that pop-off valve until he starts this champion Grand Prix of Belgium. Chris, give us the entire grid.
When Ayrton Senna circled this challenging track at 137.312 miles an hour Friday, he tied the all-time record of 9 pole positions in a season, jointly held by Juan Manuel Fangio and the late Jim Clark. The lineup for today's race was determined Friday, as Saturday's runs were marred by rain, a frequent visitor to this course. Alain Prost, tied in the World Championship lead with his Marlboro McLaren teammate Senna, starts second and is really Senna's only challenger today. The second row is made up of 2 Ferraris, number 28 wheeled by Gerhard Berger of Austria and Michele Alboreto of Italy, soon to depart the Ferrari garage. Row 3 belongs to 2 non-turbo cars, Riccardo Patrese of Italy in a Williams Jug, and the darling of the fans here today, Terry Boutsen of Belgium in a Benetton Ford. Italian Alessandro Nannini, Boots and Benetton teammate, and Japanese pilots Satoru Nakajima and Nakama Lotus Honda occupy row 4. Nakajima's teammate, three-time world champion Nelson Piquet of Brazil, and USF&G driver Derek Warwick of Britain are a row 5 starter. American Eddie Sheeran in arrows and Nigel Mansell's replacement Martin Brundle, who was fastest in the rain yesterday, hold positions 11 and 12. Grand Prix rookie Mauricio Guttleman of Brazil and Italian Ivan Capelli and their Leighton House March Judd non-turbos make up row 7. Alec Caffey and Adalar and Philippe Ayot and Alola, each relying on Ford power, are the 8th row. René Arnoux of France at 40, the old man of the circuit, and his Lee J. Judd and Philippe Streff in the AGS Ford are 17th and 18th. Andrea de Cesaris and Real and Stefan Johansson and Lee J. Judd are next. Then it's Jonathan Palmer and a Tyrrell, Gabriele Tarquini and a Coloni, Yannick Dalmas and a Lola, Piercarlo Ginzani, and Baron Schneider, like Ginzani and a Zach Speed, and Nicola Larini and the Osella complete our lineup. Failing to qualify were Luis Perez Sala, Pierluigi Martini, Stefano Modena, Julian Bailey, and Oscar Larawi. This beautiful spa circuit nestled in the Ardennes Mountains is loved and adored by just about everybody. It's part public highway and part special road course. It used to be over 8 miles to the lap. It's been reduced by about half. Now here's David Hobbs for a detailed look.
The village of Francorchamps nestles in these green tree-clad hills on the Belgian-German border. And boy, it's green here because it really knows how to rain in this part of the world. The Spa-Francorchamps circuit also nestles in those same hills. And what a circuit, from very slow to super fast corners, 20 of them all told, with a 350-foot elevation change as well. Let's join Martin Brundle yesterday afternoon in the wet as he approaches La Source hairpin taken in first gear in these Formula One cars. And as you can see, it's a hairpin in the truest sense of the word. As he accelerates out there past the old pit complex, he's actually going downhill here quite steeply. He's up to 6th gear at this point and about 160 miles an hour as he goes to Eau Rouge, to my mind, one of the most dangerous and daunting corners in Formula One. Bursts out into La Radion, and he's still going uphill here as he goes through the Kemmel curve. But in fact, for the full length of this straight, he'll only pick up about another 15 miles an hour because of the steepness of it. He's coming into Malmedy now, hard on the brakes. A right-left swing, probably taken in 2nd, maybe 3rd gear. There we see him exiting the left-hand part as he goes into Les Combes. And now he's starting to go downhill again, 3rd and probably up to 4th gear here. Quite quick down this little short stretch, and he brakes hard for Rivage. This is a tricky corner, downhill and long. Off camber because of the downhill slope, particularly difficult in the wet. Up to 3rd gear for this left-hand sweep. And accelerates hard out of here, still going downhill here, quite steeply, and probably up to about 150, 155 miles an hour as he comes into Toulon. Brakes, goes down to 4th, and then picks up the throttle again. This is a 2-part corner, and as he exits, he slips up into 5th gear, and is probably doing back up to about 155 miles an hour. Hard on the brakes for Leifan, down to 3rd, I would imagine, maybe 4th for some of these cars. Goes to the right-hand section there, and you can see that left front wheel only just kissing the ground. Brakes hard for Stavolo. This is a very important corner. Slow starts off here in 3rd gear, slips up into 4th to take the 2nd apex, and he's now really hard on the accelerator again as he rejoins the public highway. This is the general everyday road from Stavolo to Francorchamps. He's also approaching the fastest part of the corner, of course, even though it's composed of a double left-hand corner called Blanchimont. And as he exits this tightish left-hand part, he's doing about 195 miles an hour in the drive. Now he's hard on the brakes for La Chicane. A nasty entry in 2nd gear, left, right. In everyday use, this chicane is the bus stop. Exits it in 3rd gear, much quicker than the entry. And Martin Brundle completes a very wet but a very successful lap, as on his return to Formula One racing, he qualified fastest in yesterday's very wet qualifying session.
Nice job, David, and I can't wait for the start. We'll be back for that after these messages. Formation lap here on what is a nice day, David, after a tremendous change in the weather in the last couple of days and indications that it may change before the checkered flag waves over this Belgian Grand Prix today.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a lot warmer today, 77 degrees. Yesterday afternoon was pretty chilly. The day before was extremely cool.
Okay, Friday it was cold. Yesterday it rained. It's 77 degrees now. The humidity is 52%. The winds are out of the east at 5 miles an hour. And the airport close by says we could have intermittent showers before this race is over. Now, from the pick 6 standpoint, point. David Hobbs, how do you see the finish of this race?
Well, I have to say that Senna's going to win it. Prost will no doubt come second. Berger should come third in his Ferrari. Then we're going to have Derek Warwick. I think he ran very well this morning in warm-up, followed by the local hero Thierry Boutsen and his teammate Nannini. But of course I don't stand by any of that.
All right, now John Bizignano down in the pits. Let's have your finish, please.
Thank you very much, Chris. I always hate to disagree with David, so of course I've picked Senna as number 1, Prost as number 2, Berger in the Ferrari as number 3, again the local hero Mr. Boutsen number 4, Nannini his teammate in that normally aspirated 4, Ford car number 5, and Warwick, I have him down picking up the last championship point, number 6.
Okay, and Chris Economaki here figures that Alain Prost back to the wall with the World Championship at stake will win today over Ayrton Senna, who will take second. Ferrari mounted Gerhard Berger of Austria, I see third. Thierry Boutsen, the local driver, fourth, followed by Italian Kelly Alboreto of Ferrari, and in sixth place, Derek Warwick in the Arrows Megatron. Well, we've gone on the record there. David, I'm excited about this race. This is a beautiful circuit, part public roads and park racetrack. This is a bus stop, right?
This is actually the bus stop, yeah, the local village bus from Stavolo to Francorchamps stops here weekdays, and it's a pretty bumpy chicane, very bumpy on the way in especially, and as you can see the exit there is just a little bit quicker. They'll probably exit there, most of these cars, depending on the engine and gearbox configuration, they'll probably exit there in third gear at about 80 miles an hour, 75 miles an hour.
Well, you know what impressed me, David, when you told me that the Eau Rouge turn, which is part of the racetrack here as opposed to the public roads, is so steep the Belgian people will not let it be used as a public road. Now, there we're looking at the stagger start. It's about 30 feet between rows. That's a great shot. At the lower right-hand corner here is Poleman Senna. On the right side is Alain Prost. These are the McLarens that have won every single one of the 10 races so far. 26 cars waiting to go. And as John Bizignano said earlier, the tail-end Charlies here cannot see the starting light. Attention Bills here.
There we see Senna on the left of the picture, of course, on the right-hand side of the road, on the inside for that first very, very critical hairpin. Green flag being waved at the back there, showing the field's ready. The light's green, and let's see what kind of... Notice how Senna pulled over on Prost there. Here comes Prost. How about that from second? My man in the white helmet has moved ahead of the Brazilian. I wonder if this is team orders, David Hobbs. I don't think it's team orders. That's potential. Really? I mean, this is the worst start Senna has had all year. And Alain Prost grabs the immediate lead over Brazilian Ayrton Senna. And now we're going to see an auto race in this Formula One Grand Prix here at the Spa-Francorchamps, Belgium. Look how close Senna is. Senna's trying for the lead early. Senna pulls alongside, but you can see this long shot here as they're coming up to the highest point of the racetrack, and Senna's got him on the inside. He didn't stay in second very long. This has got to be frustrating to Alain Prost. Absolutely, after a beautiful start like that, to watch your teammate just power by with the greatest of ease. I tell you, that Senna is something else when he gets behind the wheel of a racing car, and he gets better every week. He's still relatively young and relatively inexperienced compared to Alain Prost. There's Alain Prost really turning on the power there and getting just a little bit out of shape. I don't often see that. A little wobble there. That must have given Gerhard Berger a close third and a Ferrari a little bit of a fright. Yeah, you see Berger there shifting gears. He's obviously just touching the floor, full of fuel, of course. He's hanging on well to Alain Prost. He could well be a challenge for the lead in this race. Well, I don't think fuel consumption is going to be a problem for the McLarens. They say it's a possibility for the Ferraris. You can see him. Let's take another look at the start here. And here we see Alain Prost coming from about 30 feet behind Ayrton Senna, grabbing the lead going into that first corner. And incredibly clear. Oh, there's one of the, that was Patrese. He put his wheel on the curb on the inside edge as the field files through with relatively little carnage. Sometimes this corner sees some awful carnage at the beginning of these Belgian races. Well, now here we go down the straightaway, and Mr. Senna is waving goodbye at this point. Don't tell me we're going to have another one of these where we think Ayrton Senna is gone for the day. The Ferrari seems to be loaded to the gunnels there with something. It's bottoming, sparks flying. Here's the chicane in. It's great television here, courtesy of our Belgian camera folk. And Mr. Berger's putting the pressure on Alain Prost for second place. And right there in fifth, not far behind Alboreto in the second Ferrari, is the local hero. Here we see him, Thierry Boutsen. And the rest of the field follows. One of the Lotus as well up there. In fact, it was Nakajima in the number 2 car. That's right. The first race since Satoru Nakajima joined the Lotus Honda team, but he's out-qualified his teammate, three-time world champion Nelson BK, who had a lot of trouble Friday
And then Saturday's qualifying, as I said earlier, was during the rain, so no one could improve upon their Friday time. Here comes the field. The fans excited on the side of the road there. And here's Berger trying for second. Berger tries for second and almost makes it.
Yeah, Prost gave him room there. I think it got Prost a bit surprised there. He suddenly was there alongside him. I think it gave him a bit of a start. He gave him some room, but Berger was unable to capitalize on it. But he's obviously going to give Prost a pretty good run for his money here.
Well, I think that today's race is going to be a very significant race from a career standpoint for Alain Prost, because if Berger passes him, the press is really down on Alain Prost. They sanctified him after his win in France and crucified him after he dropped out of the race a week later in England. And now the accusations on the part of the French press are now Alain Prost.
Gratifying performances from Berger. He's obviously one of those men, like Senna. He's just got that little bit extra of something, as has Prost, of course.
Well, what David is talking about, for our viewers who may not realize, that the formula changes. Most of these front-running cars up until Nini are turbocharged cars. The turbochargers will be outlawed, and all the cars will be using engines of 3.5 liters displacement. That's about 213.5 cubic inches with no turbochargers, and many new engine manufacturers are expected to come in and liven up the competition.
Some new ones, and of course some of the older ones like Ferrari have never been known to make bad, normally aspirated engines. So I expect them. Look at old Nakajima hanging on right there in front of Nannini in the boot, in the peloton.
Patrese, and right behind Patrese is Nelson Piquet in the turbo Lotus Honda.
There you see them coming out of that. This shot always just gives me goosebumps. The speed at which those cars come up that rise and rocket out onto this main straight here.
Well, it's with the Marlboro McLaren, traditionally 1 and 2 in all Grand Prix races. They start in that position right here at the Belgian Grand Prix. Stay tuned. We'll be back for more. On Wednesday of this week, August 31st, it'll be 1988 college football kickoff at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 5:30 Pacific. On the eve of ESPN's college football season premiere, Southern California versus Boston College, ESPN takes a preseason look at the nation's top teams. Players, let's go down to John Bizignano.
Thank you very much, Chris. We're trying to stay out of the way down here in the Ferrari pit. On the second lap, Gerhard Berger came streaming by the pit straight, and his engine sounded definitely off. It sounded like a cracked manifold, a broken exhaust, or maybe a dropped valve spring. The Ferrari boys, in unison, are trying to get this bodywork off. It takes 12 different fasteners to undo this rear bodywork, and right now I'm sure they wish they only had half that many. But Gerhard Berger is still in the car. It sounded terminal to me, but of course they're going to have a very close look at it. Back to you, Chris. We'll keep you informed.
Well, thank you very much, John. That's a tough break for Berger. The Ferrari people, you know, smarting over the death of Enzo Ferrari, have been hoping to do well. He's sitting in the car waiting to go. In the meantime, Ayrton Senna has pulled out to 2.5-second lead over his teammate Alain Prost. Michele Alboreto assumes third place with Berger in the pits. Boutsen is fourth. Nakajima is fifth. And then Nini is sixth. They're the people in the points at the moment in this 43-lap Belgian Grand Prix at this historic and popular Spa-Francorchamps circuit in the Ardennes Mountains near the German border.
And this is Thierry Boutsen we're seeing now, not surprisingly, of course, coming from Belgian cameramen. And this is coming through the Stavolo turn. This is double apex corner. And here we're back to the Ferrari now. Ooh, what's the working on it? Oh, Lord, they got the covers off. So, I mean, this is obviously looking pretty serious. Turbochargers come up there.
The gloves on the engine, of course, is red hot after. It's a tough break, and Berger will be unable to make up this time. This is a V6 120-degree V6 engine developed by Ferrari just for racing. It's not the kind of an engine you find in a Ferrari production car. And there's Thierry Boutsen. I think we're going to see a lot of him today, David.
I think we're going to see a lot. Yeah. You're probably right about that.
What we're chuckling about is that whichever country we go to, the television people seem to focus on their home driver. In Italy, we saw a lot of the Italian drivers. And in Brazil, we saw a lot of Ayrton Senna and Nelson Piquet.
Now there we see the rest of the field. There's one of the loaders. There's the Dallara, the red car, followed by Gugelmin with the multicolored helmet. And of course there's Philippe Streff, the Frenchman, in the AGS. A very, very underfinanced team. One that in fact is looking just a little bit dodgy at the moment, I hear, because of lack of funds. And Streff always puts his best forward, but they just don't have the money to race teams like this incredibly overpowering Marlboro McLaren team.
Well, Ayrton Senna set the fastest lap of the race on the second lap, and then on the fourth lap, he improved on that. He did a 2:02.575, so it's only right that the leader should be running faster. But you notice a little push there when he turned into the corner, David?
Yeah, there was a I noticed yesterday in qualifying in the wet, we had some good shots of him, and the McLarens do have a little bit of push, which of course makes them safe and relatively easy to drive as long as you don't have too much.
What we're talking about is the push, and when he turns the wheels, the car doesn't turn right away. That's in racing parlance a push. Properly described, it's understeer.
It's push in NASCAR, of course. Oh, backing the Ferrari into the garage. End of Gerhard Berger's day here at Spa-Francorchamps. What a shame. Shame for all of us, too, because he came third in all of our pick six.
That's right.
The doors go down on Gerhard Berger.
That's too bad. These are the new pits at the Spa circuit. In back of the old pits that have served for so many years, for so many great Formula One races on this course.
There we see Senna coming up to the bus stop chicane again.
Well, now Senna has pulled out to 3.1 seconds over Prost and opening up his lead. Come on, Alan, make me look good on my pick here, please. Okay, let's go down to the pits to John Visignano for an update on Ferrari driver Gerhard Berger's car. John?
Thank you very much, Chris. Gerhard Berger is still in the car, and legally, they can bring the car out of the garage. They haven't, like, pushed it behind the wall in NASCAR, as we say in the States. They took all 6 spark plugs out of the car. They're looking at the ignition system. To me, it sounds much more serious than just spark plugs. They are going to change those, and you could see Gerhard Berger joining this pack in just a few minutes.
But, of course, unlike a NASCAR or even a kart 500-mile race, these races are so short and so fast and furious that if you stop just once in the pits for just a few seconds, you basically count yourself out of the results of the race.
David, this business of changing engines after the last practice session on Saturday and everything, they change them when they need to or not, and sometimes it leads to this kind of a problem, does it not?
Well, this is true, actually. They always put in their newest and their best and their most rebuilt engines, and it's very often the case. I mean, it's happened to me a number of times in racing. You take out the old banger that's going very well, you put in the new hop-to-do engine, and do about 5 laps and the thing goes away on you. So it's one of those risks they take. These engines are all run on the test bed and the dynamometer, and they're pretty much up to the mark when they put them in the car. There's a great shot from the helicopter. This corner here is called Pouin, and it's a very fast double left-hander. They shift up just about there from 4th to 5th, and right now they're doing around 150 miles an hour as they come into the sharp right-hander. Pretty good complex.
These Benetton Fords certainly are fine-running automobiles, and this team has looked to be quite a challenger when the 1989 Formula One season opens up. Senna has just added to his fastest lap record. He's turned the fastest lap 3 times now. His first one was 2:02.82. His second was 2:02.57, and now he just did a 2:02.01.
Now we see Nakajima in that the Camel Lotus is going through Blanchimont, these 2 extremely fast left-hand corners, being hounded by Nannini. Now, of course, Nakajima is driving the Honda engine turbocharged Lotus, and of course behind him Nannini in the Benetton is non-turbocharged, and this is the best that Nakajima's looked all year. Teammate Nelson Piquet here we can see in car number 1, the current world champion, is making ground on these 2 now. I'm sure...
Okay, with Satoru Nakajima in the middle of our picture, let's go back to pit road and John Visignano.
Thank you very much, Chris. Again, we've been hanging around the Ferrari pit here for about the last 5 minutes. As you can see, they have recovered the engine. It started, they were revving it. It sounded clear to me. Look, as soon as he gets about on the track, these long straightaways will prove if there is any motor problems or not. But Gerhard Berger never say die. He is going to re-enter the champion spark plug race here in Belgium. Back to you, Chris.
Okay, it's a tough break for Berger, who lies 3rd in the point standings.
But he must have lost, what, 4 laps?
Right, about that. He could lose that 3rd place in the point standings, I think, if things don't get better for him. And here he is back on pit road, coming out, and let's see if he can't perhaps put up the fastest lap of the race in his quest to regain lost ground.
I know he'll certainly be trying hard as he pulls out of the pits there. The new pits down past the old pits and approaches this scary corner. Eau Rouge. Look at him whistling down here. The car dragging along the ground as it streaks up the hill there.
That's like, I asked Eddie Cheever this morning about the most difficult portion of the course, and he said Eau Rouge without question. He reached up and he patted his heart 3 or 4 times. He said it's a real heart thumper. I guess this is one of the great turns in Grand Prix racing.
Absolutely. So they're bound to modify it soon to slow it down.
Officials do things like that. So it's Ayrton Senna leading Alain Prost by 4.2 seconds after 7 laps. Kelly Alvarado and Ferrari Chevrolet is third. Terry Boutsen in the Benetton Ford is fourth. Japanese driver Satoru Nakajima is fifth in a Camelotus Honda. And Alessandro Nannini of Italy is sixth in the Benetton Ford. Nannini's car is 17.5 seconds behind Senna's. So you can see these drivers are spread out quite well. Okay, beautiful scene here in the heavily wooded Ardennes Forest. 43 laps of competition here. And we'll be back for more of the Belgian Grand Prix after these messages. ESPN's college football season premiere, the USC Trojans versus the Boston College Eagles, Thursday, September 1st at 7:30 p.m. time, 4:30 p.m. on the Pacific Coast, live. Followed by Brigham Young Cougars versus the Wyoming Cowboys at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time and 7:30 p.m. Pacific, again live. ESPN's opener features a look at one of the leading candidates for the Heisman Trophy, Southern Cal quarterback Rodney Peete. In Game 2, Wyoming won the Western Athletic Conference title last year, but will have a hard time repeating this year, and BYU is the major reason. Okay, Ayrton Senna is pulling out a figure lead over Alain Prost. The top six of unchanged here in this 43-lap Belgian Grand Prix. You know, the circuit here, David, is the longest at over 4 miles, and it's been cut in half in recent years, hasn't it?
Absolutely. When I first raced here, at this point here where they're turning right, we went on down this road on the left here and disappeared off into the country for another 4.5 miles, making the circuit very nearly 9 miles in all. In fact, we went down to the next village, down to Stavro.
What we're looking at here now is racetrack only, right?
This is racetrack only, right. This has all been rebuilt in the last 10 years, and they tell us how many laps he lost, but it must have been at least 2 or 3, which obviously means he's in with certainly no chance of winning and very, very little chance of scoring any points at all. Alain Prost is 4 seconds behind Ayrton Senna, his teammate, and that has really stayed absolutely static on 4.1 seconds for a fair time now. And if I was Prost, I don't think I'd be too worried at this stage, as long as I can see old Ayrton just a little bit in front there.
Well, before the race, we had a chance to talk to Alain Prost, and we asked him what he will have to do to win the championship.
First of all, I have to win the next race, which is Spa. And if I win it, I'm still very, very open, no problem, because we're going to fight in terms of number of wins. But if I lose it, and if Ayrton wins this one, it's going to be very tough.
Doesn't he have a magnificent nose, David?
Very tough eyes.
Alain Prost's favorite expression is no problem. But he will have a problem after today if Ayrton Senna wins it.
And there's that's Martin Brundle, who's standing in for Nigel Mansell, who's got the chicken pox, and of course right behind him are the 2 Leighton House Marchers with the Judd engines, driven by Capelli, who's leading here, and Guzman in the multicolored helmet running in second spot out of those 2 Leighton House cars.
Those are 3 Judd engines, one behind the other there. And it was a Judd engine that scored its first IndyCar victory last Sunday at Pocono, Pennsylvania, beating the highly regarded Chevrolets. And John Judd, as Bill has been walking around Spa here with a wide smile. He was at Pocono last week when Bobby Rahal took the IndyCar event.
And the way the Judd engines are going in Formula One bodes well for next year too, when everything's normally aspirated, and he's got some more modifications coming along, and I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the 1989 season.
Again, normally aspirated, for those not familiar with racing, means non-turbo, a free-breathing engine. They're really not actually normally aspirated because they have fuel injection units, and fuel is sprayed into the engines rather than breathed in as if it had carburetors.
By the way, these 3 cars that you're watching now are lying 11th, 12th, and 13th. And they are 34.996 seconds behind the leader.
And Ayrton Senna has lowered the fastest lap of the race on his 7th trip around at 2:01.817. He gets faster and faster, this man from Brazil.
Well, of course, the load's going down. Martin Brundle there, we see him going into the La Fin, they call that. Martin Brundle actually only drove this car for the first... Well, he did some testing a couple of weeks ago, and he was asked to drive instead of Nigel this week, and acquitted himself extremely well yesterday afternoon when it was horribly wet here, and he in fact was the fastest second-day qualifier in the rain. So a pretty good job for old Martin Brundle, who of course really wants to get back in Formula One. And here we see one of the Lolas.
Oh yes,
that's the car.
Along, but Martin Brundle, I think, made a tactical error when he got out of the car, and they told him he was the fastest qualifier of all in the wet. Said that Nigel Mansell is overpaid.
I missed that. He's probably right. That was Yannick Dalmas in one of the Lola cars.
And here we've got this, the three Judds, the Williams and the two Leighton House marches. Leighton House, despite its British-sounding name, is a Japanese financial consortium.
And of course, those two blue cars, the two Leighton House cars, that is a March chassis out of England. Of course, American viewers are very familiar with March chassis, have done so well in the IndyCar racing over the last decade or so. Williams, of course, have never tried to race in Indianapolis and probably will not, but Brundle would love to get back full-time behind the wheel of one of these cars. But to do that, of course, is pretty unlikely for next year, because a confirmed driver for Williams next year is going to be Thierry Boutsen, who's driving the Benetton this year. Capelli having a look around the outside of Brundle there. Brundle shutting the door in. And these three are putting up a pretty spirited drive. And right in front of them is Brundle's teammate, Riccardo Patrese, in, of course, what would be the lead car this weekend.
Well, Senna is holding Prost. Prost inched up a little bit ago, about a quarter of a second, a half a second, but now he's fallen back to 4.1 seconds behind and well ahead, some 5 seconds ahead of third place Michele Alboreto, who will say goodbye to the Ferrari garage at the end of this season.
We don't know quite where he's going yet, but he may well join Thierry Boutsen in one of these cars, the Williams cars. There we see our leader, Ayrton Senna, bouncing his way through the hot chicane.
Well, our third-place driver, Michele Alboreto, had a chance to comment about his feelings on this racetrack when we spoke to him earlier.
Well, Spa is a great circuit for me. I'm very happy to drive here always. In the dry situation it's fantastic because there is a very high-speed corners, but in the wet it's not easy because it's really up and down tracks. There is 2 or 3 difficult corners, so in the wet is not the best solution. But if we start at the front in the first 2 rows, it's much easier than who started at the back of the grid.
And Ayrton Senna's done it again. He just cut a 2:01.694 for his 5th fastest lap of the race, and that was only on the 12th lap of the competition.
Yep, and now we see the 2 Camel Honda Lotuses there. PK has managed to dispose of local hero Thierry Boutsen and is now going to give his teammate Nakajima a hard time, especially hard time, for daring to out-qualify the 3-time world champion. Who the heck do you think he is?
He'll, you know, with some, it's a cruel sport, Robert Daly wrote many years ago, and it continues to be a cruel sport. Some guests of the Camel people were in the Lotus pits here at one of the races not too long ago. As you can see the mirrors on the sides of these cars, they're about the size of an American businessman's calling.
Well, of course, when Nakajima was looking in his mirror, he was not seeing Thierry Boutsen, of course, because he's seeing Thierry Boutsen over the windscreen in front of him. I made a slight error there. It was, of course, Nannini that he disposed of, that Piquet disposed of, in pursuit of Nakajima.
Well, here's Nelson Piquet right behind him there in those 2 Camel Lotus Hondas. Piquet has had some great success here at the Spa circuit, and he admits that this is his favorite. Everybody likes Spa, drivers and fans alike, and the drivers particularly say that this is where they can show their stuff.
Well, it's got some magnificent corners like this one they're going through now. I mean, these guys are going through absolutely flat out, but it is quite sharp. And, of course, the bus stop chicane sorts you out on braking. You have to brake going through that slight right-hand side, down into second gear, through the chicane, up to third, halfway through the chicane. Then as soon as you've exited, up to 4th, and maybe even 5th before they really brake hard here for La Source hairpin, which is the first gear. It's one of the slowest corners in Grand Prix racing. As you can see, it's incredibly sharp. And, of course, back onto the public road here.
Well, Senna leads Prost, Alboreto is 3rd, Boutsen is 4th, Nakajima is 5th, and Piquet is 6th. As we leave the Belgian Grand Prix for a commercial break.
One sign you'll never see on a Benetton pit board is the signal pump off. Now, to every other driver, that means to switch off the electrical fuel pump. The reason why? They use this little gun to start their Ford engine. The gun is set right on top of the mechanical fuel pump that's actually housed in the fuel cell. A few squirts of this, the entire system is pressurized. The driver throws the switch, and the Ford engine comes alight. Now, once it's running, a drive cable connected to the upper camshaft will keep the entire system pressurized and the engine running smoothly. The advantage? Weight. And weight in Formula One adds up to faster lap times. The Benetton team feels that the elimination of an electrical fuel system saves weight and therefore gives them a little extra edge.
Well, there are 4 Honda engine cars in this race, and those 4 cars are first, 2nd, 5th, and 6th. And Honda here has announced its 1989 power plant. It's no secret that they've built a V10 with 40 valves, and it's for the next year's formula with no turbocharger, 3.5 liters, 213.5 cubic inches for the next few years. On testing in McLaren, it's said to deliver 600 horsepower, but a week ago, Ayrton Senna crashed one testing in England. And
there we see Larini in the Osella in the pits.
The poetic sounded name, Nicola Larini, a youngster who's having his troubles getting going in Formula One with this car, which is really, in a sense, an out-of-date machine with an old V8 that just doesn't deliver the power needed for this highly.
And here we see Alboreto and the lone remaining Ferrari. Alboreto went very well yesterday in the rain. I'm sure that he would be rather hoping it had rained today, despite what he said in that interview just a few minutes ago that the rain requires a different solution. He does, in fact, went well yesterday in the rain, but I don't think he's going to be able to match the McLaren Hondas today in the dry. And there's local Hero Thierry.
Alboreto's 9 seconds behind Prost, who in turn is 4.5 behind Senna on their 14th lap of this 43-lap Belgian Grand Prix. Let's now go down to the pits and our broadcast colleague, John Bizignano.
Thank you very much, Chris. We're with Lee Gogg, the International Motorsports Manager for Goodyear. Lee, earlier you told me that you didn't think pit stops would be routine here, but they really haven't run that much in the dry. How confident are you at that particular moment that they're not going to come in or are going to come in?
Well, because of the weather this weekend, we don't have much history, but we know our tire and we know the track, and we really don't expect any problems unless it starts raining later in the day, which I think right now looks good. We don't expect any tire stops.
Is this considered a high adhesive track?
No, it's actually a medium track. Medium track, not hard, not soft, but right in the middle and no big deal.
Thank you, Lee. We're going to go right behind you and pick up the Ferrari. Berger has come back into the pits. He had the same 6-sounding engine that he did a few laps ago. He certainly streaked away, passing cars left and right, every which way. No problem whatsoever. But again, the abuse of that type of running has, I think this time, definitely eliminated Mr. Berger from this Grand Prix. Back to you, Chris.
Well, John, what he did when he was out there, after Ayrton Senna 6 times broke the record that he'd set on the 2nd lap, Berger on his 10th lap turned a 2:00.772 for the fastest lap of the race, and his name is still up as holder of the fastest lap. So he did have an engine that could give power for at least a little while.
Unfortunately, they got to give power for at least 43 laps. At the moment, Thierry Boots in there. Oh, here we go back to our leader again. Senna, as he comes down to that scary old corner, Rouge swoops up there and bursts out onto the straight, taking it relatively easy. He's just over 4 seconds in front of his teammate Prost, which isn't a great deal of time. It only needs a couple of missed gear shifts, a very minor spin, or to get caught out in lap traffic, and I mean, old Prost will be right with him again.
You know, we looked at the map of the course and the Nelson Piquet diagram of it, and the gear change required here could be between 30 and 43 changes per lap, depending on whether you skip gears or not. And there's Berger in the red uniform talking with some people in the Ferrari. Got to feel that his car isn't up to Senna's car. I think in his own mind he feels he's as good a driver as Senna.
Well, he may do, but I think the fact does remain that a lot of us have known for 2 or 3 years now that Senna is probably the absolute fastest thing on 4 wheels at the moment. He has just got that little bit of extra touch. And he wasn't the same kind of racing driver that Alan Prost has been. Prost is so successful, so thinking, so mature. And Senna's had to knock a few rough edges off. And he's come to the best team with the best engine. And he's certainly knocked those edges off. And I think the fact remains that old Senna's just got about a 1/4 second a lap over pretty well anybody else in the world. And that includes Alan Prost. And I think Prost probably realizes it too.
You know, having been in the racing business for a long time in the United States and abroad, for years racing drivers were a fun-loving group and enjoyed their off-track time and their time in the cars. And now, as the sport gets so professional, you seem to think that they're not having much fun. But Mr. Senna impresses me as a guy who never has any fun.
He is definitely not your actual fun lover, that's for sure. Gerhard Berger has a very mischievous-looking smile to me. I imagine old Gerhard in his off moments could be pretty good fun to be out and around with.
There he is, right there.
Not looking too much fun just at the moment, but Who would? I mean, it's very disappointing for any driver, especially as he's in third position in the championship and will undoubtedly lose that third position today by not finishing. Prost just 5 seconds behind.
Senna has now finally pulled out within 5 seconds over Alan Prost. Alboreto, Boots, and Nakajima and Piquet still make up the top 6. Stay tuned. We'll be back. NASCAR's Southern 500 stock car race on the world's oldest superspeedway comes up Sunday, September 4th on ESPN at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific Time live from the Darlington International Raceway in Darlington, South Carolina. One of the tightest races in Winston Cup Championship history moves to South Carolina and the Darlington International Raceway, the track that's called Too Tough to Tame. Dale Earnhardt took the checkered flag last year, averaging over 115 miles an hour in his Chevrolet. Along with Earnhardt, the rest of America's top stock car drivers will take part, including Rusty Wallace, Ricky Rudd, Bill Elliott, and Davey Allison this Sunday.
There we see Nelson Piquet, who's disposed of his teammate Nakajima, and is obviously going to try and make some ground now on Thierry Boutsen. Thierry Boutsen, of course, running in the Benetton Ford, the first of the normally aspirated cars. Nelson Piquet having, obviously, the most powerful engine out here on this racetrack, the turbocharged Honda, and he should be able to wind in Thierry Boutsen, even though, of course, Thierry today will have a bit of local juice flowing through him as the crowd wave him on. There we see Whoa! Nakajima ran very wide. You can see that coming. Crikey, he disappeared off the picture. I thought he was in that rail.
Yeah.
Went wide there. But as you can see, it's not very far from that curb to the rail. And I mean, they're going extremely fast at that point. So it's a very hairy piece of racetrack. Right at the back of the picture then, we saw a white car, and that was Eddie Cheever, who must be making ground in that case on Nannini in the second Benetton.
Well, you know, Cheever has an ongoing battle with his teammate, Derek Warwick. And Warwick is having a better season than Cheever, but right now Cheever is ahead.
By 0.8, but only by 0.8 of a second. And there we see Thierry Boutsen again.
Well, let's go back and see how Satoru Nakajima had his hands full of steering wheel here. This is a replay. Here he comes up. That's Piquet, and here's Nakajima in the second car going. Well, we're seeing
we know he's there somewhere.
He's got half the car off the course, but he held it quite nicely and brought it back.
He did indeed. It's obviously a good job he did, because he's doing about 160 miles an hour there.
And slightly built Japanese driver, 35 years old, pretty old to be starting in Formula One racing. This is his first year in the Formula One cars.
While we're watching Thierry Boutsen go around in fairly lonely spot at the moment, I'll just give you a quick rundown of the positions. We've got Senna, Prost, Alboreto, Boutsen, Piquet, Nakajima, Nannini, Cheever, Warwick, Petresi, Gugelmin and Capelli, who've both overtaken Martin Brundle, who's 13th, Alex Caffey, Alio, Streff, Johansson, Palmer, Schneider, and Ginzani. Schneider and Ginzani are in the Zaxby cars, and they're about 1 minute and 47 seconds behind the leader, which means they're going to be lapped in about 4 or 5 more laps.
Well, Thierry Boutsen is, of course, the most popular driver in the race right now. We're in his home country, Belgium. And, David, I'm sure when you race at Silverstone, your home track, you know what it means.
Well, of course, the last time I raced here was with Thierry.
Really?
Yeah, he and I drove a Porsche together.
Is it all right? Can I ask who were faster?
We were actually on the pole.
Oh.
We were on the pole. I won't say who was driving.
Oh, that's good. We asked Thierry Boutsen earlier if there's any added pressure racing at Spa because it's your home track.
A lot of work, but no pressure, no, really. I do this race like any other race, like when we used to do 1,000 kilometers together. It's exactly the same. You know how I felt then. It's exactly the same race as any other race for me here, except that I have a lot more work with the press, with the people here, with the VIPs that I have to invite and all that. But it's quite a heavy weekend.
Okay, you know, Thierry Boutsen is really an engaging young man. He seems to have time for everyone. He's very popular, and everyone wishes him well in the sport. We made a mistake on Nakajima saying this was his first year in Formula One. It's his second year on the Formula One circuit. Interesting to see the interval here. On lap 8, Senna was 4.1 seconds ahead of Prost. In lap 16, he was 5.7 seconds ahead. It took him 8 laps to build up a little over a second more lead.
Which is, you know, what I say, I would say that Ayrton Senna is just about between 1/10 and 2/10 of a lap quicker than pretty well anybody else in the world at the moment. And you know, to be 2/10 of a second slower than Senna for Alan Prost, I don't think he feels that's any gut-wrenching problem, because I think everybody realizes.
No, but is that Ayrton Senna or is that the car?
Well, no, I don't think it's the car. I mean, obviously these cars are what you make of them to a certain extent. I mean, they've both got exactly the same cars. And obviously when you're comparing this car here, Thierry's car, for instance, with the two McLaren Hondas, it is the car, largely the car. But between the two Hondas themselves, the McLaren Hondas, that's very much up to the driver's individual preference and how he sets it up. And if Senna can set his up just that bit better, that's all part of the equation. There's the two, right, T-Room and Warwick right together, and there we see Brundle's back in front of the two. No, that's Patrese. The two Leighton House marches have now caught up with Patrese.
We've got 5 cars there within, get them all in the same shot, and that's great for Formula One. Here they come, and the Arrows drivers are having their own private battle again.
And of course Gugelmin has got round Capelli. Last time we saw this trio, Capelli was leading Gugelmin.
There are 3 jet engine cars right there. Most of the normally aspirated runners use the Cosworth Ford engine, and an improved version of that is called the DFR, which is in the Benetton cars of Boutsen and Nannini. Has a great aerial shot.
So we're having, in fact, an incredibly tight race here for what would be 8th spot. These guys are running from 8 to 13.
I didn't have a chance, David, to get around the racetrack, even though it is an open road. Are there any flat spots on it, or is it all up and downhill?
It's pretty well all up and down. They're going downhill now. This is a great area. They're going downhill now. This is one of the faster corners in Grand Prix racing they're about to go through. They actually shift up, beating both the factory Porsches out, which is great for the John Fitzpatrick team. And there you see that real close run here for 8th spot. Are these 3 going to make ground on the 2 Arrows, the 2 US F&G Arrows? If they do, we could have a heck of a scrap for 8th, which of course, unfortunately, is just outside the points. Whoop. Oh, it's cement dust or something there.
We have a British driver, Warwick, behind the American at Cuban. Look at this, side-by-side action.
Gugelmin made a bit of a boo-boo going into the chicane, and then promptly blocked his teammate, but who in fact got round. And there's Capelli has now retaken that spot from Gugelmin.
Breathe easier there as they head downhill past the grandstands, which are called tribunes at the European racetrack. So the American fans come over here to Europe. You see a sign that says to the tribunes. They mean to the grandstands.
Not the newspaper.
Okay, here's heading into the chicane, a slow motion replay. And what happened there? Ooh, God, I mean, that didn't do the underneath of Gugelmin's car any good.
That's right.
He outbraked himself going in and got too far in and still tried to make the chicane, turned in too late and ran over the edge of the curb horribly there, which probably didn't do the underside of his car any good at all, which of course aerodynamically on this fast circuit could be a great detriment to Gugelmin for the rest of the race. Great for the cars in front of them because it gave him a chance to pull away just a little bit. Ayrton Senna leading Alain Prost, Michele Alboreto, Terry Boutsen, Nelson Piquet, and Satoru Nakajima. We'll be back for more of the Belgian Grand Prix after these messages. Motor Week Illustrated airs Thursday at 12:30 a.m. That's just after midnight Wednesday Eastern Time. Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. Pacific Time. Motor Week Illustrated keeps track of auto racing from around the world. And don't forget its weekend edition, Sundays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. There's Ron Dennis in the middle whispering into Gordon Murray, one of his designers. They're the men behind the magnificent Marlboro McLaren team that has so dominated Formula One racing this year.
Their computer equipment that they're looking at there, their computer equipment probably costs more than some of these teams' budgets, especially people like the Bernardis and the Osella team. There we see, that's Nakajima, the yellow car. There's Nannini, who I think has just overtaken Nakajima, hard to tell. There's Senna going through the bus stop chicane, just coming up to complete lap 22, probably.
He's got some rhythm.
Perfect.
All right, Ayrton Senna turns around in front of the people there. Let's go down now for an update to our pit-side reporter, John Bizignano.
Thank you very much, Chris. I went to the management of the Leighton House March team and asked if there were any team orders relative to their 2 drivers banging wheels and knocking each other off the track. They said, yes, of course, there are team orders, John, but no one's paying attention to them at the moment. Team management is a little aggravated at Gugelmin from Brazil and Capelli from Italy. They're both hot-blooded competitors, and within a team, the competition is the most fierce anywhere. Right now, the management feels that they're actually slowing each other down, and they are putting the easy sign out to both of them. Back to you, Chris.
Okay. Well, my estimated lapping time was just a bit off. It's only actually 3 laps since I said there'd be about 4 laps before they call it the back markers. And here we see Alan Prost running in second spot, putting away one of the lap speeders.
Right, Bernd Schneider, the young German driver. Oops, a little wobble there. He gets the power down.
Well, of course, they've still got turbocharged engines. They're 4-cylinder turbocharged Zack-speed engines. And the cars really have shown very, very spotty form. They either qualify right at the back or don't qualify at all.
Okay, and here we have Nakajima in the pits with his Camel Lotus Honda. It's the second of the turbocharged front-running cars to have trouble. Gerhard Berger being the first, and they're removing the body work. Oh, they're having trouble getting it off. Well, you know, a driver works so hard to pick up a quarter of a second, a half a second. Now, let's see what happened to Satoru Nakajima a little bit earlier on the racetrack. Here he is. David, spell it out for us.
They're coming out of La Source hairpin onto the old main straight in front of the pits. And Nannini goes by. It looks like he either lost power or made a poor gear shift coming out there. It's hard to tell. We don't know how fast he went after. Obviously, it was a problem with the engine.
You see how lightweight the body is with just a couple of people holding the body up there on that car. And look at the number of people. It's interesting because in American racing, the number of people allowed to work on a car during the course of it are very limited. Let's go down now to John Bisignano.
Thank you very much, Chris. As you may hear, they have restarted the Honda engine. We have hundreds of people working over this. Of course, there's a lot of Japanese being spoken. That piece of bodywork you talked about is the longest piece of single bodywork in Formula One, and it only weighs 7 pounds. But this engine sounds terrible. And Nakajima, his best race so far this year, is having a very disturbing moment. They've shut down. We'll get back to you with the exact problem, Chris.
Thank you very much, John. That's interesting there. The men in the yellow shirt are the Camel Lotus people. The men in the white shirts are the Honda engine people, and they're separate and apart crews. Incidentally, Kenny Zemansky, an American on the Lotus crew, is celebrating his 150th Grand Prix as a tire specialist on that racing team here at Spa. Good luck, Kenny. 150 more to you.
There we see, I guess that's Alboreto going through Les Combes, going down the hill up to 4th gear, back on the brakes, down to 3rd as he goes around Rivage. And this is a downhill right-hander. Pretty tricky corner, that, because the car wants to wash out because the camber's going all the wrong way for you as you're going downhill. Swings to this left-hander. They get up to fair old lick down here because all this downhill running helps acceleration remarkably.
Well, we've just passed the halfway mark, and Ayrton Senna has a 7-second lead over his teammate Alain Prost, with Alboreto almost 20 seconds behind Prost. Boutsen is 4th, Piquet is 5th, and Nannini is 6th. Nannini is almost 55 seconds behind Senna. So Mr. Ayrton Senna and his smooth-running Marlboro McLaren really is not only in command of this race, but by far and away the fastest driver now that Gerhard Berger's car is retired.
It is slightly unusual just to go back to Nakajima being in the pits there with an engine trouble. That's one thing the Honda engine have proved to be over the last 4 years of their racing. They have been unbelievably reliable.
This is great television. Checking the spark plugs again. Notice that all the people working on the engine are Japanese, and when they work on the car, it's the British crew. Okay, let's go down to John Bisignano again.
Well, right now, Chris, it's hands across the water. Both the Japanese and the British people are working together. They're trying to change all the plugs here in lightning speed, but they've had a few problems getting a couple of the plugs out. Of course, the engine is very hot, and that expands the metals inside the combustion chamber and leading down through the top of those valves. And the engine is extremely hot. The boys are burning themselves with trying to get these plugs back in. They had the protective gloves on, but we've seen several people with very hot fingers moving very quickly. They do tend to go back into the race. Nakajima had the option of calling it a day. He says, everything else is wonderful. Let me back out there and see what I can do. Back to you, Chris.
Yeah, there's plenty of room to get around the corner without either hitting him or the guardrail. Well, a good bit of driving there, but they both, of course, made up tremendous ground on Derek Warwick, which is that white car just in front of him.
Yeah. Okay, back down to John Bisignano.
Thank you very much, Chris. We just want to say that Nakajima is out of the car now, and they have retired it. They changed the plug, started back up. The same misfire was there, and Mr. Nakajima, his best race so far of the year, has ended here in Belgium. Back to you.
It's another top runner gone out. I started to say the very first page of the SCCA driver's manual says that the responsibility for executing a clean pass lies with the overtaking driver.
That's quite correct. But there we see Petrese. That's Eddie Cheever. Derek Warwick must have got around Eddie Cheever. We didn't see that happen. He's obviously got around him, and Eddie Cheever's fallen back into the clutches now. Ricardo Petrese into Williams, Judd, and Ivan Capelli in the Leighton House March, Judd. We seem to have lost Capelli's teammate Guzman. Oh, there he is, just not too far behind after he made that bit of a boo-boo at the chicane.
Persistent rumors about Derek Warwick possibly signing with Lotus for next year. Peter Warr, the Lotus chief, says there's nothing to it, but Warwick's not coming.
Of course, the thing is, when you're racing closely like this, obviously Petrese has got to keep his eye on his mirror to try and see what Capelli is doing. And it's slightly easier for Capelli being the following driver, because he can watch both Eddie Cheever and his intended victim, Ricardo Petrese. Petrese, meanwhile, of course, is trying to make ground on Eddie Cheever, and he's keeping Capelli at bay.
The American Cheever is 8th, Petrese is 9th, Capelli is 10th, and Guzman is 11th. Brundle out of the picture is the next car in line. There they are, from above, the shadow of the helicopter crossing this beautiful racetrack here. So far, no rain. The weather forecast said that it could and probably would come prior to the checkered flag waving after 43 laps. The leaders are listening. He used to shake his head and say how they do the outside pass. We're going to have another look at this really remarkable pass. This is one they'll be talking about in racing for a long time to come. Here it is.
Coming into this sharp right-hand bend, and they bang wheels there, and of course now he's out on the marbles, and of course Petrese wants to come back in to take this left-hand part of the corner. Capelli's got the line, he's right in there, he's holding it in, not letting it drift out into Petrese, and an absolutely beautifully executed pass. They did bang wheels, but nevertheless he made his mark, he got through, and of course I expect there'll be a lot of talking in the Italian press, particularly about this tomorrow. And there may be even a bit of a slanging match in pit lane afterwards.
Well, you know something? I think it showed the great abilities of both drivers. Petrese's a senior. Oh, here we have Piercarlo Ginzani all finished in the gravel. Petrese is the senior driver on the circuit from a standpoint of starts. This is his 171st Grand Prix. No one in the race has that many. And, you know, with all that scuffing and huffing, they kept apart and they did a beautiful job of handling their cars.
Well, now, of course, Capelli has made up ground on Eddie Cheever, so now we're going to see if he can make the same sort of move on Eddie Cheever and get round Cheever. Cheever, of course, has got more horsepower than Capelli, Cheever having the turbocharged Megatron engine.
Well, when you're up, you're up.
And Capelli is certainly on the way up. Both him and Guzman, his teammate. Ian Phillips, their team manager, was asked if there were going to be any changes to their team for next year, and he said that he thought they had got the two best 25-year-old drivers in the world today, and I'm not disputing at the moment. He could be very right.
Okay, center leading Alan Prost, Michele Alberto, Terry Boutsen, Nelson Piquet, and Alessandro Nannini after 26 laps of the Belgian Grand Prix. We will be back. Time to time traveling the world covering the Grand Prix Series, we come across some little things related to Formula One racing that really catch our eye. Here, John Bisignano will tell us about one.
For 51 weeks a year, the Shop Laval in Spa-Francorchamps is nothing but a neighborhood grocery. But for the 7 days during the Belgian Grand Prix, Shop Laval becomes the mecca of motorsports modeling. In my travels around the world to all the Grand Prix, I have never found a more complete collection of racing and road car models. They are absolutely superb and actually capture motorsports history. Where else can you find a hand-painted model of Francois Sever's helmet next to Jackie Stewart's tartan plaid? The six-wheel Tyrrell, Jackie Ickx's Ferrari, the Lotus 49, the most famous and the most successful Lotus except for the Lotus 72. Shop Laval has captured more than just hand-painted models. They have captured motorsports history and enthusiasm. How many young people look through this window and fantasize about going down the turns of Spa-Francorchamps in a Formula One car? Maybe Jackie Ickx started out looking through Shop Laval, as did Terry Boutsen, two Belgian Formula One drivers. All of this is a labor of love for Monsieur Laval. Enjoy his 30 years of artistry with us. very unique shop Laval, where you can pick up some Uncle Ben's long grain USA rice, or possibly a David Halb's GTP IMSA BMW. Shop Laval, it brings out the man in every boy and the boy in every man. Back to you, David.
And that man Laval has obviously got incredibly impeccable taste. I have purchased models in that shop my very self. It's a fantastic emporium, and as he says, it sells everything from long race rides to models, and he does have some wonderful, wonderful models in there.
Well, that's interesting. There we see Eddie Cheever rushing down the track with Ricardo Patrese in hot pursuit, and behind him Mauricio Gugelmin, the Brazilian freshman on the Formula One circuit.
So that must mean, in that case, that Capelli has already disposed of Cheever and gone on ahead to now try and catch up with Cheever's teammate Derek Warwick, who's...
Let's go back now and take a look at how that pass took place.
Apparently, while we're in the model shop, action was taking place on the track. Capelli. Oh, he's a brave boy. I mean, he got round the inside of him going into Stavolo there. He doesn't mess about, does he?
Mr. Capelli has got lots of nerve.
A lot of brake locking up going on there, and Gugelmin again out-brakes and out-fumbles himself going to the chicane, and all that ground he's just struggled for 4 or 5 laps to make up on this duo. He's now gone and lost. He will try and rush his entry into the chicane. Must have to have a word with him afterwards. Far better to go in just a bit slower and come out a bit quicker, because then he really can get them going into the hairpin, which is the real key corner.
There it is.
Patrese blocking Cheever out, and Gugelmin blocking himself out.
So you're saying, David, that if you want to rush in a racing car, do it after the turn, not going into it?
Well, you've got to make hay slowly. The thing is, the entry to the chicane is extremely sharp, and the chances of getting past someone going in are slim. But as you accelerate out, the turn lessens away, and of course it's very important to make a good run up to the hairpin there, past the start-finish line, because that's where you really can pass people on the brake.
Well, while we're in the model shop, Ayrton Senna has built his lead over his teammate Alain Prost to 12.5 seconds as we come up on almost 1 hour of actual competition here. Alboreto is still third. Terry Boutsen is in 4th place in the Benetton Ford number 20. Piquet is 5th, and Annini is 6th. Derek Warwick is 7th, trying to get into the points.
Well,
in Grand Prix racing, only the top 6 finishers earn championship points. 9, 6, 4, 3, 2, and 1. If they finish this way, Ayrton Senna will be leading for the World Driving Championship with 75 points. Prost will be second with 72, and Berger a distant third with 28. But there's more to it than meets the eye, because only the best 11 placings count. Great number 11.
And of course they have to start discarding points, rather like you discard points.
Cards.
And cards, exactly. And of course Ayrton Senna has got 2 real shots in his locker, in as much as he has already failed to finish 2 races, so he can give away 2 races with no points, whereas Prost has either won or come second in every race except 1.
Right.
So when he starts giving away points, he's going to have to give away a lot. There's Gugelmin off at Stavolo, and we don't know how he got there, but I'm sure that the Belgian television service has probably got it somewhere on tape, and I've no doubt we'll have a look at that in a minute. That's a shame, because he was going extremely well, trying a bit too hard perhaps, but still going well. Nannini there, and not so far behind Nannini. We then saw Derek Warwick. In fact, he's only 3 seconds behind Nannini, the man we're seeing now in the Benetton, who is also making ground on Nelson Piquet in the turbocharged Lotus.
These DFR Ford engine cars without the turbo are really doing very well here, and I think that when next year's series opens up, these cars could be a winner early in the year. All right, Ayrton Senna now with a 13.5-second lead over Alain Prost. Berger holds the fastest lap record. We'll be back for more after these messages. Coast to a stop right after Mauricio Gugelmin did the same. That's 2 good engines that appear to have given up at about the same time. A tough break for Patrese, thinning out the field here.
Yeah, Patrese was running, actually he was out of the points, but he was still running very, very well. And of course, Patrese is one of those drivers whose name could be on the bubble for next year. He may well be replaced in that Williams team by Michele Alboreto. Okay, there's the Brazilian flag up for the leader, Ayrton Senna in car number 12. Beautiful shot here of the Ardennes Mountains looking down at the racetrack, which winds its way through this heavily wooded area. Well, round 12 of the 16-race Grand Prix schedule comes up on September 11th from the Monza circuit just north of Milan in northern Italy. And then 2 weeks later, it'll be the Portuguese Grand Prix at Estoril, just outside of Lisbon, on the 25th of September. 1 week later, the Spanish round at a new circuit in Jerez in southern Spain, the wine country, on October 2nd. Then it's across the water to Asia, the Japanese Grand Prix at the beautiful Suzuka circuit on October the 30th, and the season closes out on the 13th of November at Australia at Adelaide. And that's it. There's 5 more races after today's Belgian Grand Prix. And the weather, of course, has done exactly what it said it wouldn't do. The sun's out. The temperature's probably got up to about 83, 84 degrees because it's quite humid out there. And instead of having a wet, damp, slightly cool afternoon, they've had a hot, dry afternoon instead, which just shows how much good weather forecasters are. Ayrton Senna about to put a lap on somebody. Oh, it's like Philip Streff. Yeah, Philip Streff in the AGS, like I said earlier, under finance team. Philip Streff, the guy I've driven with a couple of times in endurance. Oh, that's Alan Prost.
That's Alan Prost.
So he must have already
to identify Formula One cars. The small numbers and the identical paint jobs of team cars, one has to go by the color of the driver's helmets in making his identification. And Streff is looking in his mirrors. Here we have 3-time world champion Nelson Piquet. He's never won here at Spa. Has had a tough time. The only drivers in today's race who have won here, Alain Prost, who's got 2 wins, and Ayrton Senna, Michele Alboreto. All the others have never tasted victory on this difficult circuit.
Well, either Piquet is in a problem because Nannini has really wound him in from quite a few seconds back and is now only just, obviously, 1/10 of a second behind Nelson Piquet. And there we see Tarquini.
Gabriel Tarquini. That Coloni car, the color of that is described by European writers as seasick yellow.
How very charming on Sunday afternoon.
And he's getting jacked up in the pit. This car has been a grave disappointment this year. It's done poorly, and they've just announced that it will be a 2-car team next year, and we wonder why.
It can do so. It can do twice as poorly, of course. They actually went well in the rain, too. A lot of these young drivers, people like Alex Caffey in Dallara, Martin Brundle, people who normally in the race don't get much of a shot at victory. When the rain comes, some of these guys do extremely well. I'm sure that a lot of them were hoping for a wet race today, as in a way we were. Not that many, Alan Prost certainly wasn't hoping for a wet race.
Well, yesterday afternoon, the talk was all Martin Brundle, the Briton who drove last year for Zach Speed, and this year has been doing so well on the Tom Walkinshaw Jaguar team that won at Le Mans. We asked him before the race if he would race again for the Williams team.
Hopefully with another team. Frank's made it clear from the beginning that, would I help him out with some testing? And then, of course, this drive came up when Nigel's ill. But I think he's pretty fixed on his drivers for next year. But who knows, if I put in a really good performance, so I might just tempt him.
Nice young man, Martin Brundle.
I think Patrese, I don't think Patrese is going to get any better. He's a very good, accomplished driver. As you said earlier, he's the most experienced driver in Formula One. But I don't think he's going to get any better. Where Martin Brundle could get a lot better yet. He's never had a good crack of the whip in Formula One. And I'd like to see someone like Frank Williams put Martin Brundle in a good Formula One car. And I think that would make a great team. Him and Thierry Boutsen would make a great pair. But I suspect that, in fact, he'll replace Patrese with...
In the leader's lap, Cappy, the last car in the lead lap.
Well, of course, it is nearly 4.5 miles around here, so it's a good nearly 2 miles longer than most of the circuits on which they race, which, we'll assume would cut down the lapping by about half. So, and I think Alan Prost is Ayrton Senna is really taking it steady, too.
Let's now get a word from John Bisignano.
Thank you very much, Chris. I want to report that several of the teams have been set up to change tires. The USF&G Aeros teams was set up momentarily for Eddie Cheever, and the Camel Honda team is set up with the in the Lotus pit here. What is happening is the temperature has gone up quite severely in the last half hour, I must say. For the first time this weekend, I've had my jacket off now, and we see that Ferrari has set up, but there are only 9 laps to go. So they have to think about what has happened to their team and to their tires. We understand Alboreto is not going to worry about tires now. He is smoking and the engine is gone. But at the moment, we have 6 teams in pit lane ready to change tires, which is strange to me, David, with only 9 laps to go. Who has the final call on that?
Well, I guess the driver has to make a decision. It's probably one of the reasons why, certainly one of the reasons why Alan Prost at least has dropped off the pace, as we see poor old Alboreto smoking his way towards extinction in the pits. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons why Prost has decided to settle for a really safe second place. He certainly doesn't want to go changing tyres, and he may have lost this battle, but he still hasn't lost the war. There are still 6 races to go, so I think that Prost has decided to settle for a strong, a certain second, and poor old Alboreto is going to have to settle for nothing.
David, is that car oiling down the track?
No, I don't think so. I think what's happened is the turbocharger's gone, turbocharger oil seal, and it's pumping oil through the turbocharger, which runs incredibly hot. And that's burning most of that oil. Very little of it will be getting out onto the track in terms of actual liquid. Mind you, if you're following it, it'd be getting sprayed on the windscreen or whatever quite a bit, but it's probably not putting much on the track.
Alboreto's in 4th position, and when he stops, it'll be Boutsen moving up to 3rd. Let's go down again to John Visignano.
Thank you, Tris, for trying to get Gerhard Berger, who has gone out of this race. Unfortunately, his crew chief came up to him just as he was ready to talk to us. We'll see if we can get his attention. Gerhard, you were one of the fastest men on this track earlier. What went wrong with your engine?
Some electronic problems.
Did you realize that you had the track record at one point?
No, but I saw in the beginning I can overtake Prost and I can go the same speed in the McLarens. So after I had just 3 and no traffic, and I thought, okay, it must be quick.
Do you think the Ferrari can keep up with them at the rest of the races this year?
I hope so.
Thank you, Gerhard. I know you want to get out here before the traffic catches you here.
Yeah, sure.
Gerhard Berger, as you said, he always does have a bit of a smile. He has a great attitude from the mountains of Austria, but unfortunately, I don't think his teammate will have the same smile on his face when he comes in. Back to you, Chris.
Don't have to. He's just pulled up onto the grass.
There he is, Michele Alboreto. It's a disappointing ride for him. He's not being renewed at Ferrari, and one way of saying he's been fired by the team for next year. He's supposed to sign with another team shortly. Rumors as to where he's going run back and forth through the press room, but this is a tough day for Michele Alboreto. He's in 3rd place, or was until a moment ago.
It was great for the hometown hero, Thierry, who's now gone up, of course, into 3rd spot as the Belgian cameramen hone in from their new 3rd place car. I wonder why that is.
A little bit of smoke on the right side of the car there as he exited that left-hand turn. We hope it's no problem for Mr. Boutsen, whose wife, I might add, did a very good job in the celebrity race, one of the preliminary events.
Yes, she drove very well. Here we see Alboreto. I can't understand for the life of me. Yes, he's very cross with himself and everybody else now. And I can't understand for the life of me why he's given himself this damn great walk back to the pits when he could have stopped last time through. I mean, it was obviously the car was finished, and I can't imagine what made him keep going. There again, I'm sure it was, like I said, I'm sure it was a turbo problem, not so much an engine problem. So he probably thought, well, I'll just finish the race out with not much power, but obviously
he's younger than you are, Dave, and he doesn't mind walking a little bit.
Oh, is that it? There we see Boutsen swinging through the L chicane across the start-finish line.
Prost now obviously backing off to save his tires. He has fallen 19 seconds behind Senna. I wonder if he feels that Senna may be overextending his tires.
Well, I expect he's hoping he is. He's still in turn 26 seconds in front of Thierry Boutsen, so it's not exactly a problem for him. He's not exactly being pressed. There you see a great shot of this circus as it goes up to the trees.
Yeah, look at him.
The old home crowd cheering Thierry on there. Go on, my son.
He's become quite a celebrity here in Belgium. Big billboards with his photograph showing him holding a pack of Camel cigarettes greet you on the motorways coming into the track. All right, there it is with Thierry Boutsen monopolizing our screen at the Belgian Grand Prix. We'll be back for more of this race after these messages. Working on lap 37 of 43. Ayrton Senna now 21 seconds ahead of Alain Prost, and here's a close one. Oh!
Can't get much closer than that.
Mr. Boutsen feeling his oats, he's going to get it.
Oh, that's Nannini. Nannini getting round Nelson Piquet. And Capelli is right behind them. Capelli has wound both those cars in, and now he's about to try and dispose of Nelson Piquet in the Camel Lotus Honda. Piquet not having a good day considering his power advantage over most of these normally aspirated rivals. But this blue car, the greeny blue car, the Leighton House March, does handle extremely well. And I think next year in the normally aspirated class they're going to be tough, and those Judd engines seem to perform well.
Well, Capelli watched Nannini polish him up. I guess he figures if he can do it, I can do it.
And we've seen him do it twice to other people in the most outlandish places. So I don't suppose he's too fussed about where he picks his point. About now will do it.
Yeah.
He's certainly not short of the required brave pills.
No, that's right. I want to find out, David, what he had for breakfast.
Probably a packet of brave pills. He's right behind it now. Now, this is where the Honda should extend the lead up here, because this is an uphill straight. They get up to about 190 miles an hour as they go around these two sweeping left-handers, and of course, in fact, the Honda engine has pulled out a bit of daylight.
What about drafting here?
Well, it's hard for him to draft because the front car has got so much more horsepower than him. To draft successfully, both cars have got to be relatively equal on power. But on that uphill climb, the Honda Camel car just pulled away.
Here's leader Senna coming up to lap 80. Cheever having just polished off Martin Brundle.
Yeah, so Senna, in fact, is going to get involved very shortly in that dice that we've just seen taking place.
Now, last time around, Senna was 23 seconds ahead of Prost. He's being held up here a little bit. We'll look at our Olivetti sheet here that gives us the time intervals next time and see what this little traffic is costing him on the clock.
Well, it certainly will cost him a little bit of time, but with a big gap like he's got 19 seconds, I don't suppose he's too fussed, because he also knows that before Alain Prost can get to him, he also has to get his way through this traffic. So I guess he's not too worried. Senna has learnt enough now that he's not going to rush his fences and try and make stupid moves.
Sort of surprised Cheever there.
Martin Brundle locking up the old front.
Surprised everybody.
Now the old front, now the steering wheel will be shaking in his hands. He's flat spotted a couple of front tires. Although it was a pretty short lock-up, probably not flat spotted them too badly.
Well, when they're going into this race, Senna shared the points lead with Alain Prost, but in about 4 or 5 more laps, he will have won the Belgian Grand Prix and taken the point lead, something he's not done so far this year.
And that's coming in, of course, from 2 DNFs. The very first race in Rio, we saw him have trouble on the grid. His gear lever was loose, apparently, and he scored no points in Rio. And, of course, whilst leading the Monte Carlo Grand Prix, which was not shown on ESPN, he was unfortunate enough to strike the barrier, a severe blow, removing himself from the race.
But he came back to win at Imola right after Rio, so he's been on top all season long. It's a great talent in Ayrton Senna.
He's a man with a mission, he really is. And this man, Alain Prost, has been the most perfect racing driver that we've seen in Formula One World Championship racing over the last 4 or 5 years, and has won himself 2 championships, won more races than anybody else. And I think it's going to take even Ayrton Senna a long time to reach Alain Prost's total of 32 Grand Prix wins.
Yeah, but Senna's pole here was his 9th of the year title record. We'll be talking more about Ayrton Senna's records when we come back after these commercials. Sunday, September 11th at 1:30 p.m., 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. It will be round 12 of the World Driving Championship from the historic track in Monza, Italy. Okay, 22 seconds now. That's like gave a second back to Prost while he was in traffic there, David.
Yeah, but only a second, which really is infinitesimal when you got nearly a 20-second lead. Thierry Boutsen coming up to lap Stefan Johansson and Jonathan Palmer. Johansson in the blue UK, Palmer in the black.
Just ran out of forward motion there for a moment.
I think he ran out of gears for a minute there, yeah. So Thierry puts a lap on Johansson. Johansson having a very, very tough year because he has driven the cream of the cars. He was Alain Prost's teammate here last year in one of these McLarens. He was a Ferrari driver for the years before that, and now he's been reduced to driving the Ligier, which at one time was a super successful car, but this year has been absolutely horrible and has failed to qualify for quite a few of these races, which for a driver of Stephan's ability is probably pretty hard to swallow.
Getting closer and closer to the finish of the 1988 Belgian Grand Prix at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. And there's our new Ligier off to the right of your picture there. We look down
I think that's Stefan. I think that's Stefan. He's pulled off at Eau Rouge.
Yeah.
Mumbling in Swedish to himself.
He's saying something in...
Looking back at the car in fond way, probably.
Swedish, I guess.
Yeah.
And here's Senna in front of...
See, only just in front of Chiva, who we saw we saw him lap a lap ago.
Yeah.
So as you can see, I mean, taking it easy. Yeah, he's really taking it easy. He doesn't want to run into any trouble with his tyres. The tyre situation has probably eased in the last lap because suddenly, although the sun's shining on the cars here, the cloud has built up quite a lot, so the temperature's probably dropped on the track surface quite a few degrees in the last couple of laps.
Think of these McLarens, David. 11 for 11.
Pretty discouraging for the rest of the group.
You know, in the history of motorsport, no one-make car has won every race all year long, and it looks like this is going to keep going throughout the rest of the season.
Well, I have some news for you. I was speaking to... Oh, there's Jonathan Palmer in the Tyrrell. The Courtaulds Tyrrell pulled off. Has he pulled off, or has he just slid off and is coming back again now? It's hard to tell.
It doesn't seem like he has any motation.
No, it doesn't look like it. I can't tell exactly where he is. No, he's not going to go in there.
It may stop in the apex of the corner.
He's going to get in the way as much as he possibly can, because Senna, I know where he is now. Senna will be arriving on JP's tail any moment. I believe he's just round the next corner. Senna serenely going on his way to another, as you say, 11th win of the year from the McLarens. In fact, first and second most times out, and of course on the pole for every race between the two of them, except the British Grand Prix where Berger snatched the pole.
This is Senna's 75th Grand Prix start, or 73rd Grand Prix start, and his 25th pole position, his 9th of the year. Now that tied the record set by jointly held by Juan Manuel Fangio and the late Jim Clark. Mr. Senna is going to etch himself into racing's record books in a very positive way.
He certainly is. He's going to end up with by far the most pole positions, because there's no reason at all why he shouldn't garner the next 4 or 5 races as well. Maybe Prost will put... Maybe the Ferraris at Monza would just... Somehow Monza brings out the best in the Ferraris, and maybe Berger will manage to squeak the pole position there. We don't know. But Honda have done this before, you know. Back in 1966, I was talking to Jack Brabham this very day. He and his teammate Denny Hulme won 14 out of 15 Formula 2 races using the Formula 2 Honda engine on their debut in world-class car racing as opposed to motorbike racing.
Well, Ayrton Senna now is heading for the checkered flag at this beautiful Spa-Francorchamps circuit, and look at this.
Letting Eddie Cheever...
almost let Cheever go back by. He must be concerned about his tires.
He may be concerned about fuel, too, because he got that new pop-up valve, you know, right before the start of the race, which he didn't have time to do any laps with at all. And I had heard that the high-consumption cars, the high-power cars, were just a bit doubtful on fuel here, because there's 2 places here on this circuit where you've got long uphill pulls, and you're using a lot of fuel on those uphill runs. So maybe he's just been very conservative with his fuel.
150 liters is the maximum amount of fuel these turbo cars are allowed. Now, for those of you in the United States who don't know what a liter is a quart and a martini.
A quart and a martini.
And here's that.
Reminds me of last night. A-wire on center. Coming into Stavolo. That
great
right
rhythm. Notice how little he moves the steering wheel.
No.
Such a sensitive machine there.
The car, of course, is absolutely unsurpassed. This McLaren, the design, the basic weight, the balance, the aerodynamic balance of the car, the power, the whole thing is just the most perfect package. I'd just love to get behind the wheel of one of those just to see what it really does feel like. It must be wonderful to drive.
We asked Don Dennis just before the race started if there were any news about his plans to perhaps come to Indianapolis, and he smiled and said, "We review everything at all times." Wants to keep his options open, I guess. And here it is. Rolling Alan Brinson ride. The checkered flag, and there's Team McLaren, their 11th win in 11 starts, totally monopolizing the 1988 Formula One Series. Look at these. Well, they're not going to go around one more time. They probably wouldn't make it, fuel being in short supply as it is.
Alex Caffey and the Dallara there, leading home Alan Prost. Alan Prost to take yet another second spot, keep himself in and drop to second place in the World Championship standings for the first time this year.
If Boutsen gets across the line without trouble, why, he'll move into 4th place in the championship ahead of Alboreto, who retired just a little bit earlier.
And here we see Boots going through the last blanchiment, about 185, 190 miles an hour, up into the chicane for the last time, around the bus stop, over the curb there just a little bit on his left, swings through the chicane, and he's about to take the checkered flag to come third in his home Grand Prix. He'll be pretty happy with that, I should think. That'll be the 4th time that Thierry, in fact, has come third this year.
Well, he's showing great talent, and of course, what better place than to have a high finish than his home racetrack?
With a strong possibility driving for the Williams-Renault team next year, a good possibility that, of course, Thierry would win one of these races.
Well, he's signed the contract. That's more than a good possibility. It's a fact. There's the Brazilian flag, and the unofficial results here, Ayrton Senna, the winner. Alain Prost, second. Cars 12 and 11, the Marlboro McLaren. Thierry Boutsen, there you see him in 3rd place in car 20, the Benetton Ford. His teammate, Alessandro Nannini. In car number 19, we have the McLaren team 1 and 2, the Benetton team 3 and 4. And in 5th position was Ivan Capelli in the Leighton House March. And in 6th place is Nelson Piquet in the Camel Lotus Honda. There are your standings. The winning time, 1 minute, 28 seconds, 149 thousandths. We'll be back for more. As Ayrton Senna of Brazil savors his 7th victory of the year, David Hobbs and John Vizignano have to share the honors in the pick 6 with 15 points apiece, picking Senna and Prost to finish 1st and 2nd. No other points there. Your host here has a big goose egg when Gerhard Berger went out and Prost did not win and Senna did not finish. Congratulations, David and John. You can argue over the first prize a little bit later on.